Welcome to another episode of GPS Radio, where we learn to love God, love people, and love to serve. Freedom Center Church is located in Fenton, Michigan, under the leadership of Pastor Jim Wiegand. For more information on the church, feel free to look us up on the web at freedomcenter.church. We hope you enjoyed today's message. And as always, if there's anything you would like us to pray with you about or discuss, we're available through email. Our email is office@freedomcenter.church. We want to reach you wherever you are, whether that's Michigan or anywhere else in the U.S. Our vision is to reach the lost at any cost that doesn't cost us our beliefs.
Well, we're going to kind of divert from our usual radio programming tradition. We've been doing this for several years now, and as many of you know, the last several years have presented some very new challenges. And so I'm going to just kind of flip the script today, and instead of listening in on a message from Freedom Center, we're going to kind of head back into the studio area and speak to a friend of mine who I believe is going to be helpful to a lot of people. My friend is Jeff Hammond. How are you today, Jeff Hammond?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Jeff, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're here today. Like, what is it you do that would be something that our listeners would want to listen to?
I have a unique gifting in audio, and I've been involved in music for most of my life. Yeah. Currently, I'm here at Freedom Center, and I run the broadcast audio. So all the audio you hear on our live stream, I'm up there mixing it.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? Because online was something that a small percentage of people did 10 years ago. It was a growing percent, but when COVID hit, everybody and their brothers suddenly had to figure out what to do. And I know that you saw as a sound technician, as a professional, the cringeworthy shaky iPhone in the front row, the pastor's spouse, with the hand getting tired, and you're hearing everything from the furnace kicking on to the baby crying in the background. That has to drive somebody like you crazy. Is that true?
Yeah, it's not so much the video that drove me crazy. It was the audio, though. I mean, it was, I guess it was a bad impression of the church, and right. I coming to this church for some time, when you hear it and you're in the sanctuary, it sounds amazing, but that just didn't translate to online.
Yeah. And I drill down on that a little bit. The difference between just putting a house mic up in the back, that you think, now everybody's going to hear what I'm hearing where I am, but that's not true. That a house mic picks up a lot more of things you don't want and less of what you do want. So mixing that sound as it goes from what? I mean, I don't know what I'm talking about, but I know someone who does, so I don't need to know what I'm talking about. So I'm speaking in a microphone, people are singing, there's a crowd noise, and now you have to make that sound in a live way outside the room as it sounds inside the room. Yeah. How hard is that?
Well, I mean, I think like you said, like when the pandemic hit and everything, everybody scrambled, and the first thing everybody does is they say, hey, let's take a stereo mix from front of house, and we'll add it to our video, and we'll put it online. And the reason that doesn't work is because when front of house, you're mixing for that specific room with that specific speakers. You've got things like to consider like dynamics. In a modern day worship service, it can, go from 20 to 30 to 40 dB of dynamic range. Yeah. And our ears are amazing because they're able to go ahead and hear that difference and adjust. But if someone's listening to their cell phone or even a TV soundbar at home, that dynamic range is going to be so much that they're not going to be able to hear when pastor gets up to speak.
Yes.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
And I've had that. I mean, back in the old cassette days, the sound man was listening to the room, but not monitoring what was going out to the cassette tape. That's how long ago it was, cassette tape, right?
I have a bunch.
And so you play the cassette tape, and the altar call starts, and the piano's so hot that all you hear is the piano. Yep. Or the voice is so low, you have to crank it all the way up, so you get all that static and room noise and stuff that comes with it. So today, it used to be the best way to grow a church was to have someone who loved your church tell a friend. Yellow pages, advertising in the newspaper. Those days are, I don't say over with. I still think a personal invitation is the most powerful way to get somebody who's never been through your doors. But let's be honest. I'm not going to a newspaper anymore. I'm not going. Are there even yellow pages anymore? I don't think there are.
I don't think so.
There's probably a Google search for churches in my area. Yeah. And from that, you might look at star ratings. But eventually you're going to click on something. Before you walk through the door, you're going to click on a button somewhere on a website, and you're going to see what's happening, and you're going to hear what's happening. And I'm with you. The churches that don't put time and energy into this. They're not only are they denying that evangelistic outreach to someone who's looking, but they're also misrepresenting what God is doing in that house. So tell us a little bit about what you have a company. It's not just you serve here, and we're grateful for that. But you actually serve. Like you've been gone the last 2 weeks serving other places, helping them get going. But if you were to go to the average church with the average problems we've been discussing averagely, what is it you do once you walk through the door to help them present themselves more effectively?
Well, I just take a look at, I like to take a look at their live stream first just to see what we're dealing with, Then I'll come in and ask them, what's bothering you about your live stream, because obviously something is if they're having me in.
Right.
And that way I can kind of address those things. And typically they're the standard problems that everybody's facing, What
would some of those standard problems be? What's the most common thing you see that's making a great thing in the room be a bad thing once it leaves the room?
So, intelligibility and clarity is very important. To be able to capture what's going on in the room is very important. The laughs, things like that. Just the ambiance of it. Like when you're mixing for front of house, the room has natural reverberation, but in studio world it doesn't. You have to add that kind of stuff in.
Yeah, so. I think as a speaker, right, as a pastor who's speaking in front of people, that catching what's happening in the room. If I crack a joke and there's not a sound, for some reason it feels like it's not funny, right? If I tell an emotional story and there isn't an amen, it feels like no one's listening. I might as well be in a studio preaching to myself rather than in front of a live, congregation. And I think people that are looking to connect they are a part of that congregation if the video does its job. We're in I Love Lucy's family room, whereas her and Ricky have an argument, or we're not, right? We are in the room or we're not. So, how did you train for this? What was did you just show up and start pressing buttons and figure it out, or?
I kind of mentioned earlier, I've always been involved in music. I've got an engineering background, so when I was going to school, I ended up getting into DJing. I ended up, producing house music. I actually own my own record label, so it's been a progression. I actually play drums and different instruments, so it's been a progression.
And the improvements that you have made. How long have you been serving here?
It was before, so probably 2019-ish.
Yeah. And again, we had a good live stream compared to the average live stream. But I would say, so what are the profound changes that have made a difference in our live stream? As far as putting people in the room, it's been multiple camera angles, so people can feel what it's like to be in the front row, or what it'd be like standing in a row during worship and watching people worship. But even if that's excellent, if the sound is awful, it's awful. I'd rather have one good camera with great sound than 10 great cameras with bad sound. You cannot
totally.
You can get bored, but you'll still be engaged, if you will, with one camera angle. But if you have 2 or 3 or 4, our brain's already wired for that because of broadcast television, movies, things of that nature. But man, that sound, if it isn't right, you are not. I would almost rather it wasn't out in public.
Yeah.
And we just relied on the yellow pages, the newspaper, and people that love their church inviting their friends. Because to say, this is my church, to share that link on social media, or, link up to live stream or Facebook Live, whatever it is. And they link up to it and they go, we've actually done a little bit of harm in advancing the kingdom versus a little bit of good.
Sure. It's the new front door. I mean, the front door is no longer physical. It's a digital door.
Yes. As far as price, again, the church of 100 people, which is a little bit larger than the average church in America. They would like to do this. They'd like to reach more people. 100 people wants to become 200 people by using this as the new front door. Yeah. How much money do you think they need to begin to do this well?
Well, it's a range, right? I mean, to do it the way we do it here, it would probably be around 10 grand. Okay. But if you can't afford that, there are other options. Maybe you can monitor on a set of headphones instead of really nice speakers, something like that, and you can get down to maybe 2 grand or something like that. Okay,
really? So you can start doing, to some degree, what you're doing for $2,000. Now, just as a pastor, we have to put this into perspective. The average person that attends the church, on average, depending on your demographic, gives between $1,000 and $2,000 per year to the church. So to say if the church grows by 10 people, then you would assume that the income with it, and this is men, women, and children, this is just on average. So if it grows by 10 people, you make the assumption that those 10 people will bring in another $10,000, $20,000 a year on average. Now, 10 people are going to walk in that require resources. One person can walk in and do 10 times that. But on average, our experiences, depending on rural, suburban, urban, between $1,000 and $2,000. So here's the question. It's not, can we afford this? There's almost a sentence of, can we afford not to do this?
Yeah.
Because we're talking about one person. Mm-hmm. One person who would not have walked through your doors, walks through your doors because this is done well. One person who clicked onto their friend's social media, that instead of being distracted by what they heard and saw, were attracted to what they heard and saw and decide to head in that direction. This, as far as I'm concerned, church growth, this is vital. Mm-hmm. So, and that's one of the reasons we're kind of breaking away from our normal, join us Sunday morning at Freedom Center and we'll, enjoy that atmosphere together, to say this, because I think this is an unknown. It's a missing. I want to thank you for taking the time to do this today, because again, I think this is vital to the church in America, that we communicate as well as we can with such proficiency, such excellence, that they can tell that we care because they can see, they can hear that we care, right? So if they wanted to continue this conversation with you, how would we get a hold of you? You have a website, a phone number, something that we can contact you at?
Yeah, the website is surrendersoundllc.com, and phone number is 248-245-1190, and I'd be happy to talk to you guys about what you want to do.
Right on. So, guys, we've been on this radio station for years and years now. You, as you listen tomorrow or yesterday to the radio show, are hearing his work. What you hear is not what I hear in the room. It's what Jeff has edited. And so I encourage you, if that's something that you want, radio-worthy sound, you want outreach-worthy sound, excellence in this area for a reasonable investment on your behalf, call Jeff and let's fix this. In the meantime, God bless you. We're so glad that you decided to join us today on GPS Radio, where we're learning to love God, love people, and love to serve.
We hope you've enjoyed today's portion of this message. As always, we would love to be able to continue our conversation by email, and you can find us on the web at freedomcenter.church. We are praying for you and believing in you and hoping that today is a great day. God bless you guys, and thank you for listening to GPS Radio, where we learn to love God, love people, and love to serve.